John Paul Jones was the first famous American naval commander. He is renowned for his unique tactics he used against the British Empire in the Revolutionary War, earning America a new naval reputation. He lived from July 6, 1747 to July 18, 1792. His fighting spirit lives on today and continues to inspire creativity and unconventional tactics in the minds of American and worldwide naval commanders. The biography I used extensively for research is John Paul Jones, Sailor, Hero, Father of the American Navy, written by Evan Thomas. Jones was born John Paul in Scotland on July 6, 1747. He was raised by his parents near a town called Kirkbean until he began sailing at age 13. He sailed aboard merchant and slave ships until the year 1768 when his ship's captain and ranking mate both died suddenly to yellow fever. He safely returned the ship to port where he was made captain over the ship and crew. He led a successful career until 1770, where his difficulties began and he had a crewmate flogged for allegedly trying to start a mutiny, and the crewmate died a few weeks later. His death has been linked to yellow fever, but at the time the authorities did not have this information, so they quickly imprisoned Jones. While Jones was out on bail, he left the area and sought out new waters. He found a new vessel and commanded it only for a short time before controversy struck again. However, this time Jones was the direct cause of a crewmate's death. After this crewmate had gotten into a violent dispute over wages, Jones killed him with a sword. For this, he would be tried in Admiral's Court, where the first dead crewmate's family held considerable power. So Jones fled the area and went to Fredericksburg, North Carolina. While there, he slightly altered his name to honor Willie Jones of Halifax, North Carolina. Thus, his name became John Paul Jones. It was not long after this until he would join the American Navy to fight against the British in the Revolutionary War. Jones's naval career started in 1775 when he offered his services to the Continental Navy. He might have gone unrecognized, but a man by the name of Richard Henry Lee endorsed him because he knew of Jones's abilities. After some deliberation, he was assigned first lieutenant of the USS Alfred. On the Continental Navy's maiden cruise, Jones had the great honor of raising the first ever U.S. ensign over a naval vessel, the Grand Union flag, while on board the Alfred. Jones came into command of a smaller ship, the USS Ranger, as punishment for insubordination towards his superiors. He used what were essentially pirate tactics, attacking ports and ships in quick, well-timed skirmishes, then leaving the area after inflicting enough damage. In one of such battles, Jones captured a ship called the Drake from the British after an hour-long battle. This battle became a symbol of the American spirit and would go on to inspire the permanent establishment of an American Navy. After this, Jones was put into command of the USS Bonhomme Richard in 1779. A Spanish and French invasion fleet was to approach England on the day of August 14th, so Jones moved to provide a distraction so the fleet could move forward. The Royal Navy sent ships towards Ireland to pursue Jones, who sailed around northern Scotland and then into the North Sea. On the day of September 23rd, Jones's squadron of 4 ships met a large merchant convoy off the coast of Flamborough Head. The convoy was escorted by the HMS Serapis and a hired armed ship, the Countess of Scarborough. Jones's most famous battle, the Battle of Flamborough Head, had begun. The British escorts positioned themselves between the American squadron and the convoy, so the convoy could escape. The Bonhomme Richard engaged the Serapis, which Jones made every effort to hook onto so that his crew could board the ship. During this phase of the battle, Jones is reported to have said his now famous, quote, "I have not yet begun to fight," in response to a call for surrender by the Serapis Captain Pearson. Jones finally succeeded in hooking on to the Serapis and cleared its deck with his deck guns and marine marksmen. The American ship Alliance sailed by and delivered a broadside blow of her guns. inflicting significant damage to both the Serapis and the Richard. At this point, Captain Pearson saw no need to prolong the battle, so he surrendered to Captain Jones. In the chaos of battle, the Richard became so damaged that it was beyond repairable, so it was allowed to sink. Jones commandeered the Serapis and sailed to nearby friendly Holland. However, worries were not put to rest as Jones sailed into port with no ensign over his vessel, which was a potential sign of a pirated ship. Jones improvised and created his own ensign, the John Paul Jones flag, to be entered into the Dutch record of ensigns to avoid charges of piracy. After his heroism and bravery in the Revolutionary War, Jones was unable to find regular employment with the American Navy, so he offered his services to Russia, who recruited him to fight in the Russo-Turkish War. He was successful in his military endeavors, but due to resentments by the commander Prince Charles of Nassau-Siegen and other officers, he ultimately failed in his service to the Russians. Jones's enemies were able to turn the Russian commander Prince Grigory Potemkin against Jones by accusing him of sexual misconduct, which led to Jones's arrest for allegedly raping a 12-year-old girl. One of Jones's last allies in Russia, the Count de Segur, convinced Potemkin that the girl had not been raped and that Jones's enemies had falsely accused Jones for their own gain. Jones left Russia shortly after this, embittered by the whole experience. In May of 1790, after a short time in Poland, Jones arrived in Paris, France, where he would retire and live off of his pension from Russia. In June of 1792, Jones was appointed U.S. consul to meet with the Dey of Algiers to negotiate the release of American prisoners. But before he could meet his appointment, he was found dead in his apartment on July 18, 1792. John Paul Jones was an extraordinary man who accomplished many heroic feats in the Revolutionary War. His reputation lives on as the first famous American naval commander, and continues to teach and inspire many naval officers to this day. However, due to today's unstable social climate, Jones may be looked upon as racist for sailing on slave ships in his teenage years, or a rapist because of the false accusations brought against him. In our current social climate, allegations of wrongful behavior can get a historical figure censored or erased from the history books. It is an unfortunate occurrence that so many people today will call for the censoring of prominent historical leaders because they are considered politically incorrect in our time, when in their time they were leading exemplary lives worthy of living up to.